This is the Energy Makers Show, featuring the innovators, financiers, and policymakers focused on the global energy demand. Brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And here's your host, Paul Dickerson.
Hi, I'm Paul Dickerson, and welcome to another episode of the Energy Makers Show. Today we hear from Fred Zeidman, President George W. Bush's pick to run the U.S. Holocaust Museum, a board member at Memorial Hermann Hospital, UT Healthcare Center, and the Heart Institute, and now chairman and CEO of the Zeidman Group, offering his perspectives about opportunities for energy companies in Houston, Israel, and West Africa. All that right after this.
Where will the energy come from to move us forward? From natural sources in abundant supply, or perhaps a man-made source? At NRG, we believe innovation will solve our energy needs. That's why NRG is moving away from fossil fuels towards wind, solar, and other sustainable technologies to power the smart grid, the electric car, and our clean energy future. We're using all of our energy to develop more of it.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show with your host, Paul Dickerson.
Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show. Our guest now, Fred Zeidman, Chairman and CEO of the Zeidman Group. Fred, great to have you on the program.
Thank you, sir. What an absolute delight. I love the fact that both of us found the right place to come when we left Washington, D.C.
Indeed.
We couldn't have gotten out of there quick enough, I don't think, but welcome back to both of us to the energy capital of the world. So
absolutely.
We left the oil and gas capital of the world. We came back to the energy capital of the world.
Indeed we did.
Indeed we did.
All right, so tell us about the Zeidman Group.
Well, the Zeidman Group is truly designed to take advantage of all this gray hair that I've developed over the last 40 years of servicing particularly the energy industry and the financial infrastructure industries, I guess, for lack of a better word. I literally have had a career involved in this space and attempting to help companies grow, to help companies restructure to the extent that that's needed. On governance issues, on financing issues, we are not a broker-dealer. We basically are advisors. We're advisors to companies are investors, institutional investors. We spend a fair amount of our time representing groups primarily out of the East Coast that are looking for exposure into the energy industry, both vetting opportunities that they see and creating opportunities for them, working with companies here who are seeking financing or who are seeking growth opportunities. Okay. And that's where we're focused. That's where we're focused. And again, I laughingly tell people, while I got it, let's take advantage of all this gray hair. So,
perfect. Well, and I know that you've been constantly asked to serve on board after board. There's a company, right. Hyperdynamics.
Hyperdynamics is just a perfect example.
Well, and they had some big news.
And we've had some monstrous news here in the last couple of days. And I will tell you, I proudly look at the picture of us going on the New York Stock Exchange every day about a year or so ago. Hyperdynamics had a license offshore West Africa. The license was about to expire. There were tremendous political risks, as there were anywhere in West Africa.
Sure.
And I was asked with two exceptionally experienced operating men to come in and basically become members of the board, but to work to get the exploration
right.
activity done. And we did that. It took us 2 or 3 years. Last week announced a joint venture with one of the major international oil companies, which basically position us perfectly to go forward with the drilling program into one of the largest oil basins known in the world.
So how did you do that, Fred?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is not take credit because, again, I had two marvelous partners, two men that have had a tremendous amount of operating experience. But it was multifaceted. I mean, here we are with a license, and I believe it was a 10 or 12-year license, and we were brought in at the end of year 10. So that we had 2 years to actually drill a well to completion. And we had a license, but we had, again, a government that had been unstable throughout this period. So we had to attempt to deal with the government and get all of the permitting done. We had the license, the permitting done to drill the well. We also had to raise the money to drill the well. And we were able to, again, through several of our board members who have had a tremendous amount of experience in that part of the world. Look, everything is serendipitous. And you have to have a lot of luck to go with this as well. But we got lucky because the government over there got stable enough that we were able to deal with one president, not one president every 4 months who had all of his own cousins that wanted our license. And once we stabilized the government, we were then able to go to serious major financial institutions who were all aware of the play.
Well, congratulations.
So we couldn't be happier about that. And we're always looking for additional opportunities to do more of that. Again, I promise you I earned all this gray hair. And it isn't all from politics.
Well, but you bring up, President Bush tapped you to serve as chairman and CEO of the U.S. Holocaust Museum, and I know that Israel, the country of Israel, is very important to you personally. Can you tell us about some of the energy opportunities that you've seen as you continue to travel back and forth? There's
an old joke: if Jews are God's chosen people, why did He give us the only spot of land in all of the Mideast that had no oil on it? Well, the fact of the matter is, it took 2,000 years, but we have now figured out that He apparently gave Israel the largest single oil reserve in all of the Mideast. If you look at what has been produced, if you look at the shale production possibilities, throughout inland Israel, and you look at the deeper zones that are about to be tested for the first time, all indications are that Israel contains the largest single oil reserve in all of the Mideast that dwarfs Saudi Arabia, that dwarfs Iran, and this is a country the size of Harris County.
All right. So where did they find it?
Well, first of all, the offshore play proved this gas deposit out in the Mediterranean offshore, and as they've done further seismic, they found deeper depths there that they feel contain monstrous oil deposits. But the bulk of it is onshore. It's all in shale play. And as we've been able to produce in this country, all of a sudden the opportunity creates itself there. Now, it's not quite as easy here because with all the questions about water here, Israel has no water. As you well know, that's been their major problem forever. So they're having to develop technology that's going to allow them to to produce their shale with very, very limited supply of water, and whether that's going to come through desalinization, which obviously is one opportunity, but through futuristic technology, which, by the way, will end up being a major benefit, as you can imagine, in the United States, because what's the biggest one of the biggest holdups we've got here? Are the effects of fracking and the effects of the amount of water that it takes, and the elimination of that water. And if Israel develops a technology that allows that to be minimized, if used at all, the opportunities here in this country. So all of a sudden, in the last 7 or 8 years, Israel has an energy potential that's unmatched anywhere in the Mideast. And they're starting from scratch. Again, I mean, ironically, when the first discovery was made there, they had no energy department. They had no energy infrastructure. They had nothing. They called their Minister of Homeland Security or the Interior, whatever you want to call him. Said, "Okay, you're now Minister of Energy." I mean, what are you going to do? Right. So they literally have started from ground zero in trying to build. There was no government infrastructure, and so I have worked with the original energy minister, who didn't even know how to spell energy when all of a sudden he took it over, and the subsequent ministers. They are finally creating an energy department, but they've gone out internationally to seek people with experience to build a a regulatory process for them. I mean, they,
starting fresh.
They're absolutely starting fresh, and they started fresh in the last few years. So it's been an incredible experience to be a part of all of that as well.
Well, and to that end, I'd love it if you'd stick around and talk about some of the opportunities in Israel after we take a short break.
Great.
We'll be right back with Fred Zeidman right after this.
At BKD, we understand the constantly shifting nature of the energy industry. As a national CPA and advisory firm, we serve energy clients from the beginning to the end of the cycle. Our experienced energy advisors serve approximately 300 energy companies in exploration, midstream, downstream, oilfield services, and power production. Plus, we're the largest North American member of the Praxity Global Alliance, which means we can help you wherever you operate. Contact a BKD advisor or visit us online to learn more.
This is the Energy Makers Show, brought to you by NRG, moving clean energy forward. And now, back to the Energy Makers Show with your host, Paul Dickerson.
Welcome back to the Energy Makers Show. We are carrying on with Fred Zeidman, CEO and chairman of Zeidman Group. Fred, we were just talking about Israel and your work with the government as they seek to stand up their energy focus. Where do you see some of the opportunities, either for U.S. companies doing business there or moving some of that technology out of Israel into the U.S.?
Well, first of all, Israel, of course, has become one of the fastest growing industrialized companies in the world. And it's all because of the development of technology. Interestingly enough, almost none of that has been in the oil and gas field. There has been a tremendous amount of it in the energy technology field, obviously, because not having had oil and gas, as you know, Israel has been one of the premier innovators in solar energy and, arguably in wind power. But to get back to the oil and gas piece, which is coming online now, first of all, the political dynamics, the geopolitical dynamics in Israel create a situation where, as you can imagine, most of the international operators, both on the service side and on the E&P side, have had great trepidation about becoming involved because they've had so much involvement in the rest of the Mideast that and have so much investment in the Mideast. They have not had a comfort level as to the reaction of the rest of the Mideast to any direct activity. If you look at the play in Israel right now, there's only one name over there, a domestic name that public is Noble. I mean, that had
so Noble's the big player.
Noble has been the big player. Noble made the initial find. Noble has been there for 10, 12 years. Yep. I commend them for their courage for doing that. As they develop that field and they develop the pipeline capability and they develop their ability to export out of there. None of that exists. I mean, can you imagine? This is the state of Texas 110 years ago. We find oil. What do? We have to build refineries. We have to build a capability to get it to the refinery. We have to develop a capability to get it from a refinery to wherever its end use is going to be. The opportunities are absolutely unlimited. Again, I've been fortunate enough, for reasons totally unrelated to energy, to be very close to those who have been in the leadership positions that are now dealing directly with the energy space. And to the extent that we can play a role in trying to connect that, for the same reason that I asked President Bush to appoint me to be chairman of the U.S. Holocaust Museum. There's a dual benefit here. The dual benefit is the benefit to the state of Israel. And that, to me, of course, is tremendously important. So the things that I can do for Israel are primary motivation to me. And the fact that the collateral benefit happens to fall into the Zeidman Group certainly doesn't insult me either. So,
well, let's switch gears on helping people. Houston is known for its medical center and the healthcare group, and I know you serve on a variety of boards. The Heart Institute, Memorial Hermann, UT Health. From a board role, as you look at opportunities for energy efficiency within these medical facilities and schools, are you seeing that opportunity?
If you look at the budgetary issues that face the Texas Medical Center right now with regard to both national and statewide funding. And you look at the reliance historically on that funding. You don't have to do much more than read any of the rags over the weekend that talk about the big issues they're going to be facing this Texas state legislature.
Right.
But the biggest single issue that we face down at that medical center is funding sources. And there are two sides to funding sources, as we've all read about it, the fiscal cliff issues. One is the revenue generation, and the other is expense cutting.
That's right.
It will absolutely be a function of cost cutting that's going to enable the Med Center to continue to be as viable and continue to grow. And I'm not sure of the numbers, but I would bet if you look down there, the second cost behind labor cost has got to be energy cost.
Got to be.
You can look at some of the energy generating capacity down there now, and it sits on some pretty valuable real estate as well, which certainly cannot be the highest and best use of that land. So all of that being said, I think that anyone that has any kind of technological advance are in the field or in the space of energy savings, there is not a better place to test it than the Houston Medical Center.
Well, Fred, you're a good friend for coming by. Thank you so much.
Well, I really appreciate it, Paul. Look, we both found the right place to come.
Indeed.
When we left Washington D.C., and so I'm glad we're both here. We are both functioning in an area that is so critical to the future of this country, and that's energy. And we're fighting regulatory issues, environmental issues, and it's all going to be based on technology, and it's all going to happen right here. So let's keep the good fight up.
Well, thank you, sir. And that wraps this episode of the Energy Makers Show, heard on the radio nationwide and seen right here at TheEnergyMakers.com. I'm Paul Dickerson, and we'll see you next week.